Today, I'm going to share a little bit with you about how I got started in needlepoint. So you're going to have to put on your time travel hat, and we're going to go all the way back to 1972 when my grandmother taught me how to do needlepoint from a canvas that she bought for me at Gaffer's department store at Edgewater Mall in Biloxi, Mississippi. You see, when I was growing up, we lived here in Tuscaloosa, but my daddy grew up on the Gulf Coast in Mississippi. My grandmother lived in Long Beach, which was about a 6 to 6.5 hour drive from Tuscaloosa at that time. We had to go on old US Highway 11, which was a 2-lane road. So it took a while to get there. And when we got there, we stayed a while. And lots of times mother and daddy would take me and drop me off, and I would get to stay for an entire week. Then they would come back and get me a week later, and oh well, then I'd go on to see the other grandmother who lived in Tupelo because my family is from Mississippi. But I digress. So one summer vacation, I was spending a week with Granny. Daddy had taken me down and dropped me off. And so Granny and I were watching television. That was one of her favorite things to do at noon every weekday, was to sit in her chair with her needlepoint project and stitch while she watched Days of Our Lives. I did a post about this over on the Serendipity Needleworks website about, like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. I can still hear that song playing in my head. But what Granny would do was she would sit in her chair and she would stitch. And well, what's a 9-year-old kid to do? I knew how to do embroidery because she had actually taught me how to do embroidery earlier. When I was about 7, she took me to Morgan and Lindsay and bought me the dresser scarf set and the pillowcase set that I could stitch in. It was a stamped cross stitch. And so I did an embroidery, and I did those until we had so many of those, we definitely didn't need any more. Well, essentially what happened was Granny put me in the car and took me to Edgewater Mall in Biloxi. And we went to Gaffer's. Gaffer's at that point was a department store, had a beautiful needlepoint department. So she took me upstairs to Gaffer's. She bought me a small pre-worked needlepoint canvas, and it had a little bouquet of violets on it. And she bought me the yarn to do the background because that's all you did. The design was already stitched, so you just filled in the background. And after we bought all the supplies, and I have to admit, I thought that I was in high cotton because I was getting me a big girl project. So after we got my supplies, we went to eat at the Copper Kettle, which was a restaurant inside of Gaffer's. So that was a huge treat, something I'll never forget. She took me home. She taught me how to do the tent stitch. I learned how to do the continental variation of tent stitch because that's what she did. She didn't use a frame. She used her finger to hold the thread down on the back, and she stitched over the tail until it was secure. And then off she went back and forth in horizontal rows, which is exactly what I did. But the thing that I remember the most, and I have to, it's almost embarrassing to admit this, I was in my 30s before I realized what she was doing, y'all. She said to me when we would sit down to start working on our project, she said, let's have a contest. Let's see who can get the most stitching done. Well, of course, me with my kind of personality, I'm like, okay, I'm in, I'm going to win. So I'd stitch and stitch and stitch. And boy, I was engrossed in what I was doing. Couldn't tell you what was happening on Days of Our Lives to save my soul, which is probably part of the point, because she probably also knew that I didn't really need to be watching Days of Our Lives when I was 9. But anyway, we would work on our projects. And then when the hour was up, we would go and do whatever we were going to do next. Many times that included baking brownies or going to the local fish market and getting some shrimp, or, all kinds of fun things. She was a huge gardener too, and we would putter around in the yard. So we did all kinds of things. But our stitching time was at noon. So that's how I actually learned how to do needlepoint, was from her. And like I said, it took me until I was in my mid-30s. I guess it took having a child of my own to realize that what she was doing was she was trying to keep me busy and occupied. And being the mother of 6 children, she was a master at that. So anyhow, that was, it dawned on me one day when I was actually in my shop, and I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, she was teaching me how to do needlepoint, and she passed along that to me, and that's a legacy that I'll always have of hers. but she was one smart cookie trying to keep me occupied so she could watch her story, get her stitching done. And a side perk was that she taught me how to do needlepoint too. And it's a hobby that I obviously still have to this day. In fact, it's one that I'll have for the rest of my life. So kudos to Granny for teaching me how to do needlepoint. I wanted to share with you, I don't still have the original piece that I learned how to stitch on, unless my mother has it packed away somewhere safe and sound. And I just, I don't know where it is, but I did see on eBay, oh, I don't know, a year or so ago, a canvas that looked very much like that first one that I did. So I wanted to share that with you. This was a Bucilla kit, and this is actually larger than the canvas that I had. Mine was a small piece. It was probably about that, about that big. This one is quite large, but when I saw the bouquet of violets, I thought, oh, I have to have that. So I bought it. And for those of you that have never done pre-worked needlepoint, this is Penelope canvas. Penelope canvas is also commonly called duo canvas because you can work larger stitches, or you can work, and that's between the big holes on the canvas. So that's the 10 count part, or you can work between the tiny little threads, and that'll end up giving you a 20 count or 20 stitches per inch. And that's petty point. So anyway, the piece that I had, I stitched in the grow point, the large stitches, and I stitched it in a navy blue background, and we framed it. So that's my plan for this, is to take this and get me some navy blue DMC tapestry yarn and stitch the background behind this and then frame it. So that, my friend, is how I got started in needlepoint umpteen years ago. I would love to hear how you got started with needlepoint and who taught you. So please make sure you tell me down in the comments below. I hope you have a terrific rest of your day. Thanks for joining me. And until next time, happy stitching. Bye for now.